Hello, and welcome everyone to Living a Graceful Life. I'm Denise Medved, your host, and I'm also the creator and founder of the Ageless Grace Brain Health Program worldwide. I'm here to remind you that it's never too late to begin making choices to create the life that you want to live. Regardless of your age, your education level, your job, how many members there are in your family, what your career might be, where you might live, none of that matters when it comes to making choices to live the life that you want to live. Because all of the choices that we make about our quality of life, about inviting more grace and pleasure into our lives, is affecting our body, our mind, our emotions, and our spirit. And guess who is in charge of all of those things? We may not be able to control jobs or bosses or weather or geographic location, but we can influence what we do to make an impact on the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of ourselves. So, this episode, we're going to talk about, does music matter? I have to say that music is near and dear to my heart. I have been so blessed with music in my life, probably since before I was born, because my mother played the piano, my dad sang and played the accordion. They were always making music in our home. And I grew up singing, playing the piano, the clarinet, several different instruments, and I am really happy now about that. Not only does it give me joy and pleasure, but I have now found out that making music, listening to music, dancing to music, playing a musical instrument has so much to do with our quality of life and how we age. And of course, many of us think of aging as something that happens to us maybe after we're 55 or after we're 65 or after we get on Medicare. Well, guess what? We start to age the day that we're born. A 2-year-old is much younger than a 7-year-old. We're always aging. That is the process of life, aging. So it's not a bad thing or a negative thing. It's a wonderful thing. The more we age, the longer we get to live. The secret is to make choices to cause those years, days, months, weeks, moments of life to be the best that they can possibly be. So music that we can add into our lives. If you have a cell phone, for example, then you have access to all kinds of music. There are wonderful websites where you can download music or where you can live stream music. There are websites where you can buy CDs. You can go to yard sales and tag sales and buy CDs and then transfer them to your laptop or computer or iPod or iPad. Once you bought them for a quarter, 50 cents at a yard sale or a tag sale. There are thrift shops that sell used CDs of all kinds. And of course, I'm talking CDs right now because that is not so far in the recent past, but some of you may even have, 8 tracks, remember those? Or cassette tapes, and all of those now, we have the technology to be able to transfer to one of our more modern music players like an iPad, an iPod, or our laptop or computer, or our cell phones. So we all have access to music. Thank heavens, because music is so wonderful for us. Johns Hopkins Institute, which is one of the most renowned institutes in the world for medical knowledge, information, and research, has done some wonderful studies on music, along with literally hundreds of thousands of other research organizations. And one of the things they say that the music can help you have a better quality of life and give you a total brain workout because it's a great tool as we age, which means pretty much from any age that we have access to something that makes or plays music. So research also shows that music can reduce anxiety. That's a nice one. It can help us manage stress. It can lower blood pressure. It can help us with pain. It can improve sleep. It can improve mood. It can enhance our mental activity or our mental alertness. And here's a big one. It can actually improve our memory. I find all that fascinating. Now, I didn't say that. John Hopkins said that. So why would we not want to listen to music, play music, maybe learn to play a new instrument, or dance to music every chance that we possibly get? I always love to say that it's wonderful for everyone, just from a physical movement exercise point of view, to stop 2 or 3 times during the day, put on a song and have a dance break. Like really enjoy yourself, just dance to the music. I know you've all heard that saying, dance like nobody's watching, right? Well, that's what we want to do. Just take time out of your day to dance every time you can think about it. Or maybe you do play an instrument. You don't have to practice for an hour all the time. Perhaps what you do is just take a 3 or 4 minute play my music break and you play your instrument. I happen to play the piano and it happens to be in the next room. And sometimes I just sit down and play one song and it lifts my mood and it makes me feel happier. It gives more grace and joy and pleasure to my life to just take that little music break. Certainly, you can listen to music on, again, your cell phone, your laptop, almost anywhere that you are. And most cars have a radio these days or a CD player or something that makes music. So even as you're driving, you can play music. Be careful not to play music that's too relaxing because you don't want to get sleepy behind the wheel, right? Probably music that's more energizing. And maybe even not music that has words to it, because if you're singing along to the music, you might not be paying attention to your driving, right? So here's another interesting piece of research, that music is structural, first of all. And what does that mean? It has a specific form and structure to it. Whether you're writing music, reading music, listening to music, dancing to music, it has intervals between notes, sounds, vibrations, tones. It has a structure, the way you plot it out on the graph, which is the treble and bass clef, if you're writing music or if you're reading it. It is very structured and organized. Even though when you're playing music and dancing to it, you may feel like you're not structured or organized and you're not doing any set of steps, but the very act of listening to the music causes your brain to analyze or pay attention to the structure of the music that you're listening to. Many people who say they don't know much about music and still identify the vocalist versus the drummer versus the trumpet player versus what might be the chorus or the refrain of a song versus what might be the storytelling part of the music. It's actually fascinating how much we know about music, whether we've been trained to know anything about music or not. Our brain knows a lot about music. So that's the structural form of music. Guess what else? Some of you may not want to hear this if you don't like math, but music is mathematical. I mentioned intervals. They're called thirds and fifths and sevenths. It's mathematical. And when you plot it out on a piece of graph paper, on a piece of lined music paper, you can see the structure of it. You can see the mathematics of it. You can see how chords are so many intervals, like a third apart, to the E, to the G. Interesting and fascinating. Another interesting fact is that very often music majors in college or in graduate school often have a double major. Take a guess what the other major is. Mathematics. It goes hand in hand for those of us who are fascinated by music or who like to write music or read music or listen to it. It is very mathematical. So that doesn't mean you have to like math if you like music, or that you have to like music if you're a math person. But it's very common for musicians and mathematicians to have those two things as passions and hobbies and loves in their life. Now, the third thing that music is, and I love this, is that it's architectural. Architectural. Now, what does that mean? I've alluded to that. I said when you chart it out or write the notes on the lines or the spaces on music graph paper, that it is very structured. I mean, you can actually see it going up and down and moving and creating different patterns and changing. Very architectural. This is just a little known fact which has always fascinated me. If you plot a Kodály music scale on a piece of graph paper, regular graph paper, it will create a perfect logarithmic curve. That's for we math nerds or music nerds. All of you may think, what the heck? Who cares about that? But it's just a fascinating correlation between the tones that music makes and the way you plot them or write them architecturally on a piece of paper. So let's talk a little bit about what can you do to introduce music in your life besides just playing a song once in a while or putting some music on your cell phone or downloading music onto your iPod or iPad. There are also live streaming websites and downloads. There are things like Spotify.com, Pandora.com, AmericanJukebox.com. The list goes on and on. There are so many possibilities. And of course, there's iTunes and Apple Music. You have access to so many different kinds of music that it's amazing. And some of you may say, and how does that add to a more graceful life? That's what this episode, this show is all about. Well, remember that grace is a gift that comes into your life. It's a moment of joy or pleasure that's bestowed upon you by something outside of yourself. So I always, personally, whether I know who the artist is or whether I know who the composer was, think about that artist that's performing, that composer that wrote that music, because I know that they wrote it for me. Who else do they write it for? Me and you and all the people who are listening, because music isn't music if nobody listens to it or plays it. It's important that there be both the artist, the musicians playing the music, the composer who wrote the music, and those who listen to the music, dance to it, play along with it, sing along with it. Singing is making music too, of course. So all of those things not only affect the brain, which is pretty logical, right? But they also affect you physically. As I mentioned earlier about reducing anxiety or improving blood pressure, lowering blood pressure, helping your sleep quality. But it also affects us emotionally. Music is very emotional. You can play songs, and there have been so many studies and tests and so much research done on how does certain kinds of music affect your mood or your productivity. There are tons of business research showing what kinds of music can you play that will cause your employees to work faster, be more focused, concentrate better, those types of things. So the list of the kinds of applications for music goes on and on and on and on. Sometimes if you want to just Google music research or studies on music or how does music affect the person or how does music affect the brain, you're going to be shocked by how many answers, papers, articles come up if you Google it, for example. So it also not only affects you emotionally and mentally and physically, but it affects your spirit. It can lift you up, it can calm you down, it can feed your spirit, it can stress out and make your spirit anxious. There are certain kinds of music that you may just hate to listen to, and it causes you to feel very anxious or stressed out or almost angry. There are also kinds of music that can cause you to relax and feel peaceful and nourished and calm. wonderful playlists on Spotify and different websites like that that are called sleep playlists or deep sleep playlists. Relaxation music. Try it sometime. If you have something like Alexa or Spotify, or Google Home or one of those different kinds of devices, you can ask it to play music for you of any kind that you like. Music that will wake me up and get me going. Music that will stimulate me and cause me to be more alert. Music that will cause me to be more calm and peaceful. If you're feeling anxious or stressed out or distracted and pulled in many different directions. So let's talk about a few other things you can actively, consciously draw into your life that have to do with music. Well, I've mentioned in several episodes that one of the things that causes neuroplasticity to take place, our ability to change our brain and central nervous system, specifically as it is related to movement, because physical exercise is the best exercise for the brain. So I've mentioned that music is one of those things, right? Can stimulate neuroplasticity. And so is dancing, and so is playing a musical instrument, and so is singing. Fascinating, huh? That all those music-related things have to do with impacting your brain and causing it to be more elastic. The other thing is that anytime you do something new that you've never done before, and you're attempting to figure out how to do it physically, or anytime you do something that you already know how to do, but in a different way, you are stimulating neuroplasticity and causing change to take place in your brain. And we know why that's so important, because the brain is command central. It's the big control panel for all the rest of the body, including our bodily functions, the way our organs work, our body temperature, the way we sleep. It affects so many things. So, needless to say, if you pick up an instrument that you haven't played in years, you're going to be doing something that you haven't done in a long time or may not remember exactly how to do, and you're going to be stimulating all those 5 primary functions of the brain: strategic planning, memory and recall, analytical thinking, creativity and imagination, and kinesthetic learning. If you decide, I'm going to fiddle around with learning a new instrument. Now, you can be very serious about it and go take lessons to learn to play a new instrument and buy a new instrument and bring it home and practice it. Or you can play with it, meaning go on YouTube and see if you can figure out how to play the piano if you don't already. You can make up a fake keyboard on top of your credenza, for example. Or maybe you get a simple flutophone and you start to learn how to play the flutophone, because it's not something you ever did before. It's a plastic flute that you can buy or play. How about a harmonica? Do you know how to play a harmonica? That would be a wonderful thing to learn how to do. And of course, on YouTube, there's how to play the harmonica, how to play the piano, how to play any instrument that you can imagine. How about a drum or different kinds of drums? It's very different playing a drum set than it is playing a djembe, which is an African drum, or a bongo or a conga drum. So that's one thing you can do, is decide to learn to play or go back and pick up an instrument that you have not played in many years, and it will sort of jumpstart your creativity, so to speak. It will help your brain fire neurons, which are brain cells, and it will help your overall well-being, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spirit-wise. So another thing you can do, and some of you may make a face over this one, is you can start to listen to your grandkids or your kids' music. Probably music that you don't really like or certainly don't appreciate. Now, what does that do besides irritate you? Because I know my dad used to always say, that rock and roll is not music. Come in here and let me play you a record of Tommy Dorsey and his big band. Now that was music. So listening to music that you're not familiar with, music that is not your kind of music, music that is not what you normally would like, guess what? It stimulates your brain. It literally causes your brain to struggle to understand a new sound, structurally, mathematically, and architecturally. How fun is that? You can console yourself if you really don't like that music that you're having to listen to or play that belongs to your grandkids or your kids. You can console yourself by saying, most songs are 3 to 4 minutes long at the most, and it'll be good for your brain to do that. Guess what? It'll also give you something to talk about with your grandkids on some level or another. They might even be interested to know that you want to listen to their music because it's going to cause your brain to have to figure out how to listen to music that's different than what you normally listen to. Now, here's another thing you can do. If you're attempting to recall a memory, something from college, something from your childhood, something from church, something from school, you can reach for music that is familiar to you, that you would have been listening to during that time period of your life. And very often, it will cause you to remember what it was you were trying to recall about that particular time of your life. Isn't that interesting? They actually did a study on brain health one weekend. This was done by Harvard Medical School, where they invited a certain group of people that were in their college ages in the 50s. And they took them away for the weekend, and they put only newspapers out in a house that was decorated, big house that was decorated with 50s furniture, colors, wallpaper, etc. They put only newspapers from the 50s. They played only music from the 50s. They put magazines from the 50s, and then they had them all interact and talk about all their memories from the 50s. They did a test on all kinds of physical things like blood pressure and temperature and those types of things, cholesterol levels, physical activity, muscle mass before that weekend and then after that weekend, and not very long. That's just Friday to Sunday. And they were shocked to see how their brain power, their neurons, their mental recall had improved, and how things like their blood pressure had lowered, their heart rate was better, their oxygen intake improved. Now, isn't that fascinating? Because they were flashing back to a time when they were much younger and healthier, and it actually had a huge impact on them today, regardless of what age they were. I just think that's a wonderful and amazing study. Now, another thing that you can do is to play music of happy times to improve your mood. If you had songs that you loved and it makes you smile to think about those songs from the 80s or those songs from the 60s or disco, when you used to go out and do disco every weekend, if those are positive memories for you, play that music. Because guess what it will do? It will get inside your brain, inside your cells, and it will help improve the quality and pleasure of your life. It's a way to invite in more grace. Now, the final thing that I'd like to suggest to you is that you start to pay attention to your body as you react to different kinds of music. Start to know something about yourself. Does a particular kind of music calm you down? Does it stimulate you? Does it keep you from going to sleep? Does it help you fall asleep? Listen to them. Does it energize you, help you concentrate? Whatever it might be, listen to a song and then notice what's happening with your body. And then you might want to choose to listen to music that does those positive things for you and adds to your life of grace. So what I love to do is after we talk about a particular topic, I like to play a song and show you a tool from the Ageless Grace Brain Health Program, because we've been sitting already for more than 20 minutes, and that means we need to move. That's a reminder to all of you that if desk a lot, if you watch TV a lot, if you sit and read the newspaper or a magazine for a long time, you need to get up and move about every 20 minutes. That's amazing, isn't it? In order to not only help your joints and your ligaments, your tendons, your vital organs, but also your brain. It needs a break from all that focus and attention on one thing. So one of the tools that we have in Ageless Grace, they all have silly, playful names to help us remember them, is called Front Row Orchestra. And it's all about helping us learn to multi-skill. as opposed to multitask. Multitask is attempting to do three completely different things at once, like talk on the phone, stir the soup, open the door and let the cat out, or doing one thing, even though it involves different parts of the body. It's multi-skilling, which means you practice to be able to do that. And that's what playing a musical instrument is. If you play the piano, you know that this hand is doing something different from this hand. This foot might be using the pedal. You might be reading the music, and guess what? All you were doing is playing the piano. That applies to any musical instrument. So I'm going to put some music on, and we're going to imagine that we're playing different musical instruments to this music. And I've mentioned before that it turns out that physical activity, actually playing the clarinet, for example, lights up all the same parts of the brain as imagining that you're playing the clarinet. So how can we lose, right? So I'm going to put some music on. I hope you have a comfortable chair that you'll join me, push it back or away from whatever you're watching this show on. And I invite you to take your shoes off. I always have my shoes off for more grace in my life, and because there's 7,000 nerve endings in each foot that want to be stimulated to help my nervous system, my central nervous system and brain function better. So here we go. So what I'd like you to do first is play the banjo. So tap one foot and imagine that you actually know how to play the banjo. Or maybe you do. Chords up here, a little foot tapping. Maybe your body's moving to the music and you're strumming those strings down here. Switch sides. Uh-oh. And you put thimbles on your thumbs and you slide up and down that washboard, and it makes this great little sort of ratchet sound. And I've got both feet tapping. Now how about, I mentioned the harmonica earlier, how about we pretend we know how to play the harmonica? We're blowing into it, right? And we're going to switch hands so that this hand is the hand that's muted. And I also mentioned the flutophone, a plastic flute. You might want to whistle at the same time. And you're going to play on it with sticks. Not a drum set, but a made-up drum set. All right, wonderful job. So have fun playing with a little front row orchestra on your own. You can play musical instruments. It can be something you actually hear in the music when you're playing it. You could play one instrument and pretend like you really are getting it on with that wonderful instrument that you've decided to play for the whole length of the song, and always play it on both sides if it involves one side of the body or the other. And if you want to know more about these kinds of tools and exercises that stimulate your brain, your body, your emotions, your spirit, your mental attitude, you can go to agelessgrace.com, agelessgrace.com, and of free downloads, handouts, a free class, but there are also classes you can buy. There is a DVD set, there's a playbook, we don't call it a workbook, all kinds of things to support you in being able to move simply and easily at home, on your own, or with your family, in a way that will stimulate your brain and your body. We also have all those products on winwinwomen.com, WINWINwomen.com. So thank you for joining me on this episode of Living a Graceful Life. And I would like to remind you once again, the way we started, it's never too late to make choices to create the life that you want to live. So thank you for being here.